So I want to welcome everybody to the call today. I have a couple of very special guests with me that I'm very, very excited about sharing with you all today. My name is Michael Brown, and I'm a spiritual life coach. And what I do is I help people to turn their heartfelt dream into physical reality. And you can get a free ebook and a video e-course on manifesting your dream, turning your dream into reality, by going to my website at mikebrowncoaching.com. And I'm also an author of a book called You Are a Gift to the World, Blessings from My Mom. And you can get a free chapter of that book by going to youareagift.com. And that's a little bit about me and what I do. And now we want to go right into the very, very, very special guest that I have here today. And I'm very excited about this call. My first guest is Bill Kauth. Bill Kauth was working as a psychotherapist and business consultant in 1984 when he conceived and co-founded the New Warrior Training Adventure, now presented by the Mankind Project to nearly 50,000 men in 40 centers in 8 countries around the world. In 1992, St. Martin's Press published his book, A Circle of Men, the original manual for men's support groups. As a social inventor over the last 2 decades, Bill also co-founded the Spiritual Warrior, Inner King Training, and in 1995 launched the Warrior Monk Training Retreat. And my second guest, which is also his partner, her name is Zoe Alowan. Zoe Alowan has been actively engaged in sacred art for many decades as a painter, sculptor, dancer, and storyteller. Her work explores transformation and healing. Her life is about reclaiming essence wisdom. She utilizes the inspiration of the divine feminine, humor, song, and ritual movement as ways of celebrating wholeness. She has taught at Echelon and Narapo Institute. Facilitates women's groups, singing circles, as well as intuitive process painting retreats. Now, Bill and Zoe have been working together actively, learning and teaching the concepts of processes of gift community. They're committed to bringing about healing, understanding of the essential feminine and masculine with a focus on building communities of men and women. And today, they're here to share their new book that they just wrote, and it's called We Need Each Other, Building Gift Community. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Bill and Zoe. Welcome, Bill and Zoe.
Thanks, Mike.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes. So I just want to get right into it and get right to the heart of the matter with this, and just start out by, asking you the first question around your book, and what I want to ask you is, and I guess this question is for Bill. Bill, how did you start doing men's work?
Boy, that was back in the 70s. I got into a men's support group. I was a feminist, actually, because I could really see, I'd done a lot of Gestalt training, so I could see that the women's movement had the power of transformation. So I became a feminist therapist, and through that, I found out about the women's consciousness-raising groups, I believe, and I figured, heck, if the women, want that, well, we should have a men's one, and basically created something that hadn't really been, formally created, and got into a men's group in the 70s, and that just, I loved it. I loved it so much, and it stayed in my heart until like the 80s, in which at a time when I essentially got I like to think of it as like a divine call, so to speak. I was at a feminist women's therapist conference, and I could see all these beautifully evolved humans, and none of them were men except me, and somebody's got to do something for the men. So gathered together some friends. One was Rich Toast and the other was Ron Herring, and we literally cobbled together. We each had our own kind of funny genius, and we cobbled together this training, which launched in January of 1985. That's 25 years ago, and now it's spread all over the world with 50,000 graduates in 8 countries and several hundred communities. So it's been remarkable. It still kind of dazzles me. And having done all that, I kept kind of open to my next call. And as Zoe and I connected, it seemed like what people are really desperately hungry for is community. So we began the process of building community and met an infinite number of interesting challenges.
Yeah, and I noticed as I was reading through your book, and just to let the listeners know, this is kind of a platform that leads into community building, because as I was reading your book, I noticed how you talk about you're using that model in the men's work into how you and Zoe are working together and building community with men and women.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's in Bill's book where he writes In a Circle of Men. In that book, there's a chapter by a man when he talks about a man named Dana Perry who brought these men together for a retreat at a beach, and at the same time their women were going to be up on the ridge doing a camping, and the idea was they were going to bring the safety and the intimacy and the depth of their men's work together with the women doing their women's work. And this was back in 1992 when Bill was talking about this, and they came together after each having 3 days on their own, and they got closer and closer to each other, and they watched how the men's spirits began to droop and the women began to become anxious. So the leaders of each of these groups, Dana and Perry, and then the other woman who was leading, this woman who was leading the group, looked at each other when they came close, and they said, soon, but not yet. And that's been what a lot of men and women who are doing work of diving deeper and more safe in safety in the gender circles have done. And now we say it's time.
Yeah, I've been watching this very, very carefully for 20-some years, and I actually believe now I'm seeing the signs of the inner transformation of enough men and women, so that I'm seeing relationships that I just hadn't seen before. They're starting to show up in this way. I like to think of it as the masculine getting to a point where we can actually adore the divine feminine, both in our individual manifestation of a woman and in Mother Earth. So I think that internal transformation is come to a point that it really is time for men and women to come together in a way that hasn't happened in 5,000 years. And that's part of our work, is building communities of safety that just wasn't even possible before.
And I want to ask you guys, what brought you guys together doing this work?
Well, I think it was this, first, we both attended a very large and famous arts festival called Burning Man, which Bill had been there before, but it was my very first time, and as an artist, I had really wanted to see the amazing art at Burning Man. And we were introduced by a man named Gordon Clay, who has one of the largest websites on men's work on the Internet. It's called mensstuff.org. And he had also done this work called Healing the Mother Wound, Healing the Father Wound, which if you've done those two trainings, you could do a whole week long of clearing the air between men and women. And I had done this, and Bill had done some of this work, but I had gone through and done this whole clearing the air piece. And I had brothers for the first time. And, of course, I'd had sisters before, but this was just to have brothers that I could call in the middle of the night if I was in trouble, and they'd be there for me. And so, anyway, I spoke with Bill about that when we met at Burning Man, and we also both realized how astonishing people can be, people's capacity for doing amazing things, such as the way the men in the Mankind Project show up for each other and have go and do so much volunteer work to create this training and to further it. And I had done a lot of work with also with working with a group of artists to create a free program of art education for kids and families for about 20 years. So we both were like full of this idea of, man, people have so much capacity if they're inspired by their heart and by their honor of doing something that really feeds their integrity. And so we said, let's do something.
Also, I need to say that I, as my role with the Mankind Project is I'm just called the visionary at large. And so my task is to study what's going on in the world and then bring the word back to my people, back to the men. And as I started studying the state of the world, I frankly was terrified looking at peak oil and looking at the inevitable economic collapse I could see 10 years ago, and the environmental global warming stuff. And so I decided to take that on the road. So in 2005, I went to 25 cities And basically the response was people kind of knew it, and they just weren't that happy about being bummed out. And everywhere I went, what I heard between the lines was, we want community. So I kind of made an intention to take on that challenge, as I suggested earlier. And oh my God, was it? It seemed so easy, but it so isn't easy, because we live in a culture in which damn near everything, mitigates against community. Our entire economic system is based on competition, which means don't trust each other, And then it also monetizes everything, which means we absolutely don't need each other, because we can simply buy anything. So if you won't do it for me, that one will. So it's like literally we've built a culture in which we don't need each other. And the truth under that, in our hearts and souls, we profoundly need each other. So to make that shift, sounds like everybody's ready, but at some level they're not. It requires some real strong, protracted invitation to get people to come forward to bond and to make a commitment to each other.
And I want this work that you're doing. It seems very, very critical and powerful at this point in time. And you mentioned something, Zoe, when you shared that story about not now, and now is the time. Because I know in our circles here, we have a men's circle and we have a women's circle. Women within the Mankind Project, and a couple times we brought those circles together. Not really knowing what we're doing. Let's just bring them together and kind of see what happens. I know different people have different energy around that, and I know there's some men who have resistance to that, and I imagine some women. I don't know that. I can't speak for women. I just know I've heard some men that had resistance. But I loved it myself. I wanted to do more of that. And I guess what I want to ask you guys is, for those people, for the people that are like, no, I can't do that. I know you've heard this. I can't, if I'm a woman, I can't work with men, or I'm a man, I can't work with women. What could you say to them? What could you say to them, right now, that they could hear, that would have them maybe create that safety or have them step into that space? Anything you have to offer?
Well, I will put this out, that one of the most important things is how to create gender safety, and to do that, we need to understand our differences and our similarities as men and women. And in the Clearing the Air, which was that week process of men and women, there was something extraordinary. This is with, say, 6 men and 6 women, but we had to make an agreement, a commitment to never be sexual with anybody in that group, ever. So that allowed us to drop all of this sexual posturing that we probably learned when we were 12 or 13, and just has not been very functional for a real, genuine understanding between the genders or safety. So that was a huge education for me personally, and that continues to be something that comes up in my women's group, and with men, is just understanding the other gender, understanding our differences, and also coming to learning to honor, for me as a woman, to honor the masculine, and understand how different things, different ways a man has of being accountable than a woman. So it's just building a lot more respect and compassion for each other. Bill might have something about that.
I think it's also, a lot of that capacity is grounded in just the evolution of our skill sets around transparency. As we do our inner work, we actually learn, who we are and how we operate from the inside, and then we learn how to communicate that to others. And in those skill sets, we actually learn the transparency between the genders that allows a much higher level of safety. So.
Even in our clearings, when Bill and I are working with something that's come up, it was a big thing for me to learn that a man can effectively listen to a woman for only about 2 minutes. And so we break it down into 2-minute time segments when we're working things out. When we sit down, we actually sit down with a timer, and we each have 2 minutes. And we can sometimes ask the other person to repeat back what we said, make sure we are heard. women, as a woman, I did not understand that before. I thought I could talk endlessly and then make a further point and another point, and that they would be tracking. And it doesn't work quite like that. So identifying these things and is very helpful. Alison Armstrong is another person whose work on understanding men, her website's understandmen.com, and she has brought so much understanding to me as a woman about a man's development process and about my own difference, the way that a man is single-focused as opposed to a woman has this diffuse awareness pouring through her and isn't focused at all. I mean, not that I can't focus, but it's a whole different system. So there's lots of things like that that are useful to bring into the discussion between men and women coming together safely.
Yes, I totally agree with that, and I'm sure you know, and I know you guys have been doing these circles. You ran over 35 of these circles together, and I know for myself that sitting in these men's circles for 5 years, it just occurred to me many times that for women to see, I mean, I've just witnessed men doing work.
This is a good point.
It's altered me as a man just watching men be together that way, because I've never seen that ever.
Yep.
And so I just feel like I knew, and I'm probably speaking to what you guys already know, that I know that would do the same thing for women to see, for women to just witness men doing work together.
Well, Mike, I think that's what was so powerful for me in clearing the air. I witnessed men doing their work, their carpet work, as you call it in Warriors. I witnessed men doing their emotional work, and they witnessed the women doing it, and the compassion.
Yes.
And the pride. Oh my gosh, that person is so courageous. Just inspiring. And things like I had no idea men had been so. I thought it was sexual abuse was something that happened primarily to women. I had no idea that it was an issue that men had to wrestle with so profoundly. It deepened my compassion and my respect to watch a man do his work. So that's important.
Yeah, so Mike, you know from the New Warrior Training Adventure that it's a place where men actually get to see for the first time the profound pain of other men, and for the first time they feel not alone often.
Yep.
And then invited into the kind of the brotherhood of men, which is an initiation that every man needs, no matter how old he is, if he hasn't had it. So to imagine that kind of a connection between men and women in which we can see each other's pain and feel that empathy, it's huge. And, to do that requires a safe container. That's one of the things that MKP is kind of famous for, is building containers safe enough so that we can hold anything, which really allows us to see each other's pain and feel our own openly, often for the first time. So we're actually looking at building communities in which there's that level of safety so that men and women can, on an ongoing basis, just really, really share who they are in a way of transparency. And I got to tell you, here's what's really so exquisitely beautiful is I've been looking for what I call, liminal space, that threshold between the worlds. It's a place where there's pure joy. It's a place where everybody's heart is so open that something magical happens. It's the container for authentic transformation, and we've been hitting that like 8 out of 10 times in our local gatherings here. I've been wanting it and waiting for it. And very slowly we've built the container, and we now have a couple of groups of people that get together, and their hearts are so open that we just drop into this joy. And we have our meetings and share our gifts and have an infinite number of potlucks, and it's exquisite. And we've actually had the patience to create what we've been wanting for a very long time.
And I want to speak to that real quick, because I want the listeners to really get this, that you guys have been working on this for many, 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 many years, and I really got that in the book, that this is not, like, you've really been working on this, and in this book, like this book right here, I mean, as I was reading through it, it's like blowing me away, because I'm seeing that this is like a blueprint. I mean, I think that this book is like a blueprint. It's kind of like it's a how-to book. It's like how to build a loving community, and And so I just really want to acknowledge you both for your commitment to that. I mean, thank you for doing this. Like, it's so relevant, and thank you. And I guess the next question I just want to ask you is, how did you come to write this book?
Oh, good, perfect question. As we imagined creating our community, we started thinking, well, okay, so if we were going to have members, who would be the members, and what would be the criteria for the members, and who would invite the members, and what would we have values, and if we had values, who would decide on those values, and how would we invite others to share those values, and on and on and on, these complex questions. And I took on the challenge of answering them, and then sharing them with other people, and to see who would be willing to actually stand with me in the values that I chose as a champion to bring forward. And next thing you know, I looked and I said, oh, my God, we got a book here. I've been taking notes on answering these questions for our own community. And, we're building a template here week by week. So the whole second half of the book, as you know, is basically how-to, and it deals with how to answer all those questions. One of the significant ones is around commitment. And you'll notice that not only do we there's not only a chapter on commitment, there's an entire section on commitment, because, for example, commitment to place is imperative. People are so mobile. If people keep moving, they'll never have the community. So, are you committed to place? That's one of the things that we actually ask people when we meet them socially, because we want to invest our time and energy locally in the people that are going to stay here and be with us for probably the rest of our lives.
And I think for me, it was working with Bill and talking about this and dialoguing, and we did a lot of different workshops, which Bill would call failing forward, because it didn't always go so well at first. And then it came a point when I was reading some of his writing, and I went, oh, I have got to write if this is going to be a book that's supposed to we're looking to bring loving community forth of men and women. I have to be the women's voice and speak to the place where, as a woman, I need to speak to some of the organic flow that's useful for me as a woman. There's a place, again, back to that focus, where Bill is so focused. He's just on this with his persistence, which is part of his brilliance. He's just persistent every day on it. And so sometimes he'll say, okay, I want a community that is going to be there so that when I die, they'll bury my wife and take care of her for the rest of, it's like I thought, whoa.
No. Bury me and take care of my wife.
Right, that was it. What he said. But I had to say, no, wait a minute, honey. I think we've got to chunk it down so that when we ask people to make a commitment of time, we make a commitment of 3 years instead of a lifetime. So we actually had to look at that question when we're talking. This is talking about our core group, which is a small, very committed group, and we've made this 3-year commitment to each other, even though we live in our own homes. We've made this commitment to meet or communicate on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, and we have a sense that's going to be for a lifetime, but we make a formal commitment for 3 years. And actually that 3 years is about up, so we're going to have to take a look at that. So that's part of my feeding in, is that place of saying, okay, as a woman, I especially as a middle-aged woman, I need to just have some flow and sense into what is it that I need in the moment, rather than make things quite so fixed and so set. So there's a place where we balance the different male and female accountabilities. So that's part of my inspiration to start writing in this book.
Zoe, I want to ask you a question, or both of you a question about this as well. Like when we talk about the way I say it, like there's men and there's women. That's the physical, a man is physically a man, a woman's, and then there's masculine and feminine energy. And I wonder if you could speak to like a man accessing feminine energy or a woman accessing masculine energy.
Well, I can speak to a woman accessing masculine energy in that the more I come to understand the masculine and respect the masculine, then I am honoring my own inner masculine. And that's been really important to me. so that I can also kind of respect my feminine and see what is profound about it. But just the place where I can say, okay, now I'm going to step into my masculine, which is going to be this intense focus. So I'm going to put everything aside and just focus. Now, for Bill, how would you speak to that? For you as a man,
I think of us humans as being, extraordinarily complex, and we all have all of those capacities. So for women to, take a linear focus and get stuff done is totally possible if they choose to do that. And for a man to kind of open our hearts is totally possible. That's what we see in the New Warrior work all the time. Is most of us have been kind of shut down because that's not been socially acceptable. But when there's a safe place where us men can access, our heart center, which you might call the feminine center, we adore it. We love it because it's this whole beautiful part of us that hasn't been expressed. So it's right there, ready to go.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I just want to ask you guys, what is the significance about men and women working together in community?
Well, it's again this deepening of this whole conversation that we're having, which we haven't even gotten into exactly what is it that we mean by gift. And often people think that means object, that we're giving each other or bartering, and we see it more deeply. So with men and women coming together, it's imperative for me that I feel I can sit with men and there's a place for my shining. And vice versa.
Let me take it a little into a larger arena, which is that when the patriarchy came in roughly 5,000 years ago, there was a kind of a domination of women. It was an often brutal domination of women. And to go into the details of that is really complex, but that has been the way it's been for an awfully long time. You still see it in the media all the time, where women are diminished in so many ways. So for us to come together at some level, living still in a patriarchal culture, is a bit of a miracle. And it's also the stepping into the new culture, into the new worldview, into the new paradigm. And so we're actively, consciously doing that and encouraging others to actively, consciously do that, because it literally expands the potential for our joy in being, our joy in living, to have, both men and women in our intimate sphere.
And it's also this place where men, I think women have shamed men so much, and have not even been aware of how much they use shame and their tongues to disappoint or dissect men. And that is something we're very aware of, and I am very committed to bringing out this place.
In fact, Zoe, actually, when we do our public presentations, she apologizes to men for women shaming them, and I always apologize for the abuse of 5,000 years and commit myself to ending it, because it was not fair, ending it forever.
So in our circle, in our intimate circle, that's one of our core values is gender safety and transparency around sexuality, and also around honoring the genders. So because we've made that agreement, if we catch each other shaming, or we catch each other in this place of dominating the other, we're accountable to kind of work that out, because we've made that commitment.
Wow, that is incredible. So if I'm hearing you correctly, when you do that apology, you're like when you do it, Zoe, you're speaking on behalf of all women, and then when you do it, Bill, you're speaking on behalf of all men. I apologize.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it's a fairly brazen sort of thing to do, to speak for all men, and I totally give myself the right to do that.
I hear that.
Hopefully serve as a model for other men to find it in their hearts to do that. It's so right.
Well, thank both of you for doing it. I think that's just that's an incredible thing. And you spoke to another aspect. You were saying, Zoe, and I think this is an aspect, because you really, I really get how you've been looking at this, Bill, and bringing what we did, what we've done in the men's work into this community building work, and that accountability. There's a part in your book where you talk about leadership and how leadership develops, and there's a way that the leaders, when you talk about hot seating, actually, and I think you just said that too, Zoe. I don't know if you guys say that in the in community building, but it's looking at each other and calling each other out, right?
Yeah, I mean, basically, or finding a way. Okay, calling each other out, maybe a more masculine terminology, but it's
sharing difficult feedback would be probably finding the courage to share difficult feedback would be I'd language it that way.
Probably a clearing is the more common languaging we use for it. I want to clear something with you.
Hey, this opens the door for another piece that I really want to share, which is that many people, sit around hoping and longing for community. They're hoping for somebody to come and say, hey, would you like to join our community? And they may wait for the rest of their lifetime. So we suggest that anybody that has a true volition, an intention, a want, a longing for community, actually find the champion in themselves and read our book and get all the data, and then actually reach out, make that first phone call, get together with that first person or that next couple, and see if your values are in alignment. Then reach out to another. It's going to require champions. It's going to require somebody that finds that self-starter energy in their heart to start the process of building community.
We often hear that from people when we're giving our seminars. Someone will go, I've been waiting for the really best community to come along, and oh my gosh, now I see I've got it. If I want it, I've got to start it. It's an uncomfortable feeling, but a good one. I wanted to just speak a little bit about what is gift community. And how we
I was just going to ask you that question. I was just going to ask that. What is gift community?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear what you said there.
No, I was just going to get ready to ask you that question, so I just said, go for it. What is gift community?
Well, it's basically preparing as many people as possible for a shift into what we see is coming, which is a gift culture, and it's relevant to everything that's going on today. It's relevant to what's going on at Wall Street. It's relevant to what's going on with just so many aspects of our world, and it's moving from this place of transaction to trust, from a sense of you give me something, then I give you something. But we're moving into this place where I can give you something, I can give you a gift, and you may not give it back to me. You may give it to somebody else. You may not know what to do with it for a long time and then find yourself giving it. But it's that sense of trust we've lost. And a moving from a sense of we're entitled to endlessly consume, and moving from that sense of consumption to contribution, to giving back to our planet so that it thrives, not only survives but thrives, and moving from scarcity, a sense of fear and scarcity that's so pushed upon us by the media, to a sense of abundance, and from that isolation, that alienation that exists today, to a true sense of community, and from competition to cooperation. So those are like the basic tenets of gift culture. And so when we give our seminars, we talk about the gift, and we have 3 models for how it can inform your life. In your neighborhood, in a neighborhood model, and in gift circles, in circles where people gather up with friends and talk about what they need, what they genuinely, deeply need, and the people come up with the way in which they can give what people need to them. So it's basically practicing this outrageous generosity and outrageous receptivity. And I think of the two, the second one is the hardest for people, is actually being able to receive. So, of course, this informs our core gift group, but there's more than just our core gift group going on here. There's these gift circles and a way to reach out to neighbors as well by looking at how are you the gift?
How are you the gift? You know, I'm just remembering from what I was reading, and I guess this is another distinction because it's really a paradigm shift, and was something that jumped out, and I think it's right at the beginning of your guys' book where you're changing the question, like the question we ask ourselves now as individuals, and I hope I'm saying this right, I'm sure you'll correct me, but it's like we say, when we approach anything, we're always saying, what can I get? What can I get? And so it's shifting from what can I get to what can I give? Is that the two questions you have in there?
Yeah, that's probably you've just summed it up in a very brief sentence. You know, the communities we're building are rather than saying, what can I get from this community? It's like, what can I give? How can I build? How can I add to the happiness and joy and delight of everybody here?
And how can I stand in knowing that I have something to give, that I am a gift just by who I am? I mean, we've had people walk out of our seminars when we ask them this question to speak to another, to tell another person in a dyad process, how am I the gift? And some people just burst into tears and they walk out of the room. It's very hard. Other people have said, I just don't feel worthy. There's this place of overcoming a lot of resistance and being able to say, I'm a gift like this. This is how I am a gift. As we brought our community together, our core group, we went through this kind of ritual, spontaneous ritual of each saying to the group what they were going to give, what they had to give. I will give you this. And it was profound. It dropped so deep. I give you my hands that will help you build things because I have the gift of carpentry and working with my hands. I give you my support. I give you my integrity. I give you my ability to show up. You know, all these different sweet ways in which people spoke what they had to give each other.
You know, all of this is. I know we talked about this the other day as well, Bill, and I can't remember if you said this or it's in your book. It's all running together now, but it's something along the lines of that like the essence of what we're all after, or like, you know, there's how there's this drive as human beings, like what is it? What is it? I'm looking for something. Is giving our gift.
Yeah, you know, there's been tons of research on it lately about what do people really want, and if you ask people all over the world, they say they want love, family, and community, and those are that's the safe place where we can actually live into who we are and give our gift. Each of us has this profound longing to give our gift. It's like, you know, you might suggest that we were born to give our gift. There was something special and unique about each one of us, and we live in a culture that doesn't permit that at all. It's like we live in an economic system in which most of us are forced to sell our time so that, you know, we can have a little teensy time of on our own in which we might actually give our gift. And I've finally come to the place where I feel so hopeful that I believe we can completely restructure our culture in such a way so that we can all give our gift. That's my mission. You know, the warriors, the new warrior men all have a transpersonal mission, a mission beyond the ego. And sometimes it shifts, it moves. And my original mission 25 years ago was to create a safe planet through empowering men. And it's mutated and changed a few times. And right now, my mission is I create a planet, or I create a world in which everyone is free to give their gift. I create a world in which everyone is free to give their gift. And I've been studying the abundance that exists on our planet. And what I'm finding is that we are actually far wealthier and more competent and more connected than we can even imagine, and that we actually do have the resources on the planet and within our hearts to restructure an entire, you know, planetary culture in which everyone gets to give their gift, and we all do just fine. I've actually come to believe that.
I'm right there with you, brother. I'm right there, and so. Well, let me ask you guys this. How do you get a community started?
That's, you know, as I suggested, it's all in the book, and it starts with a champion. It starts with one person who says, I'm going to do this, and then that one person reaches out to another, and then together they get aligned, and then they reach out to another, and they get aligned, make some commitments, and then they reach out to another. It's just that simple. It's one person at a time. Oh, that's the other thing I need to tell you. This is huge. I've been wanting community for a very long time. So 20, 30 years ago, I thought, community, get a bunch of people together and talk about community. And they all say, ooh, good idea, Bill, let's do that. And that's the last time that group ever meets. And then I did it again 10 years after that, get a bunch of people together, community, a bunch of people, get them together, talk about community, and what I discovered was that was the last time that group ever met. And I kept doing it. I probably did that a half a dozen or 10 times. The working definition of insanity? You do the same thing over expecting different results. I finally got that getting a group of people together and talking about building community simply doesn't work. You've got too many brilliant ego chiefs. It requires, what I found is that it requires one person with the intention to build community, and that one person brings in the second one, and then they bring in a third. And it can happen fairly fast, but it's organic, and it doesn't arise all the conflictual energy too soon. So Zoe and I have kind of a sweet story, which is that in the book we actually have an application form. So,
Bill is talking about a committed core group of a community that's going to make a lot of commitments to each other.
Deeply long-term committed, yeah.
So for that one, he actually handed me an application form one day. And it's like I had a lot of voices in my head that say this man is handing me an application form for his community. But I filled it out, and as I worked on it, I realized I was writing a testament of intent, of really stating my history, stating my background, stating my reasons for why I wanted this. I even put down, references. I mean, we were already married, but he wanted references. And it's that brings up a whole other question of why he put that in there. But I realized as I filled that out that I would want other people in my committed core group to also be that transparent. They're willing to write down the hard stuff and be willing to put down references. It's kind of embarrassing, but put down references. And it made a huge difference. My writing this testament, handwritten testament of intention, and then coming inside, and I was outdoors, I wanted to be away from him when I wrote this, and then coming inside and giving it to Bill and saying, okay, here's my written application. Now I'd like you to fill one of these out for my community. Mm-hmm. And then he did it. And suddenly we had taken some big step from just talk to action. And it made a difference. And then we had this document that we could give to other people, and they filled it out and submitted their written document of intention. And that was huge. And that's specifically for building these core groups. But there's other ways that you can go about building community that aren't quite so commitment heavy. I call them commitment light, commitment heavy, because commitment is a hard thing for people in this society. So I think a good way to start would be to get this book, our book, We Need Each Other, Building Gift Community, which now you can get on Amazon. We just got it on Amazon. And get a group of people to read it together, go through it like a book group. And the easiest thing to do, and I think the most fun, is gift circles, because you just get a couple of friends together, get 6 people together, and share this idea of gift culture, share this idea of changing the paradigm, and say, okay, so what we're going to do is just share some food, have a potluck, and then we're going to sit down and each say what we need. Maybe it's something like, I've hurt my back and I need my windows washed, and could anybody help me because I can't do it anymore? Maybe it's something like, I've written this book and I really need help editing it. These things there's so many different things, micro and macro, that can be brought into Gift Circle. It's fun. That's an easy place to start. And then out of there you can see the people who have a hunger for this kind of thing.
And so I want to ask you guys, why is it so difficult to find community in America today?
We've got an entire section on that, too. There's a brilliant young writer named Charles Eisenstein who he's just published an awesome book called Sacred Economics, and his previous book was called The Ascent of Humanity, and I asked him for permission to print a chapter from his book, and it's called Alone in a Crowd, and it's about how the monetization of everything in our current economic system has destroyed community utterly. And what it means is that in order for our system, which is designed to grow, in order to keep it growing, it has to figure out ways to pay for everything. So even the most precious things like cooking meals for our family and taking care of our kids is now been turned into paid things, which grows the gross domestic product, but it also destroys community. It destroys the essence of us needing each other and working with each other and sharing our lives with each other. So the monetization of everything has actually destroyed in our consciousness the sense that we actually really need each other. So somehow we have to find our way home to really getting that we really do need each other, and then living into that. And that requires some courage, because feeling autonomous and separate and powerful has become more important to too many people than the vulnerability and the opening of the heart that's imperative for the kind of intimate community that we're looking at building.
And I think it's also the C word, commitment, because without commitment, commitment makes relational intimacy possible, and relational intimacy deepens commitment. So it's a two-edged thing here. And there's no difference between commitment to our own healing and awakening and commitment to our intimate relationships. So it's very hard to develop commitment if people are moving all the time.
And, commitment is the one thing that makes marriages work. And there's a lot of other factors like being able to resolve conflict. But those same qualities are the qualities that make community work. If we have, I think, again, Mike, you know this from the follow-up integration group from the New Warrior work, is that we do clearings. We actually teach men how to resolve conflict. And in the past, they'd get angry at each other and they'd just blow each other off and they'd never see each other again. Now we actually have the tools to resolve conflict, so friendships can go on for years and decades. And the same is true in marriages. If we have the ability to resolve conflict, that actually is the one thing that can make a marriage work. And commitment makes it possible to stay, it's a promise to stay together, to resolve stuff so that it can go on. The same thing is true for communities. If there's a commitment, it means that we're going to be together for a while no matter what. So that means that we're in this together. We're going to take the time and energy to resolve the conflicts which inevitably come up between humans. So that's such an important detail, the capacity to make a commitment.
Mike, did we answer your question?
You did answer my question, and as you're answering it, another question is coming up that I want to speak to, that I'm sure you guys are aware of. It's a phenomenon that happens, I think, for as long as human beings has been around, where there's like a disaster, like 9/11, or there's Katrina, or something happens, and human beings just seem to start to come together, like in a community. Like when everything's wiped out, then they're together, and they start organizing, and they're like ants, and they just start to put it all back together.
We're like humans. We're very, very good, compassionate beings. The truth about our human nature is that we're such good, caring, compassionate beings. There's a ton of research that's just showing up on that lately about the human capacity for love and compassion is enormous. And so when crisis happens, all of that natural capacity just shows up. But it's in us. So a lot of our work is to bring that forward without the crisis and bond into that compassion.
So it's like a proactive, not waiting for something to happen. It's more like creating it.
Yeah, and it doesn't take a heck of a lot of vision to see that stuff is going to happen. So part of our intention here is to get these communities connected and bonded before crisis comes, so that we actually can become, solace to each other and then useful to others that haven't visioned ahead in terms of stuff coming down the line.
And I just want to ask you guys another question. I know, words are words, but like the word need, we need each other. And I know I myself personally have a resistance around that word. Like something just comes up to me, like I don't need anybody. Like it just comes in my mind right away when I hear that word. So I wonder if you can speak to that.
Well,
I think if you're speaking to me to that, you're speaking to a lot of people.
Well, the truth is, if you want to look at the truth, is we are one large body, and how can a heart not need its liver? How can the cells not need each other? It's this some kind of enchantment with this idea of individuality and with this place where we recognize codependency. Codependency became something we were able to see, and there are a lot of books written on it, and then people went, whoa, I don't want to be in a codependent loop anymore. I'm going to get out of that loop. And that has been perhaps to the detriment, of recognizing that we all are one and that we are deeply interconnected and that we actually do need each other.
Charles Eisenstein, again, in his book Ascent of Humanity, speaks what an awful lot of mystics have been saying for a long time, is that we humans are the only creatures that have the capacity to generate a separate self-identity. And that's both a blessing and a curse. It gives us the capacity to do things other animals can't, but it also separates us from everything. We become these separate, autonomous, lonely creatures. And the transformation, the new paradigm, the new culture that's coming in is the understanding that we're all in this together. And it's not just a cognitive understanding. That's important, but it's also this visceral knowing that we're in this together. And that's that's kind of the gift in the gift culture. It's what we're living into. It's what the young people, it's our kids and grandkids. Zoe and I are in our 60s, so our kids and grandkids, they live this because we've been busting our butts for 20 or 30 years to learn this stuff. So this is who they are, and this is the action that's going on right now politically, like the Occupy Wall Street. These are the kids that know that we're interdependent. We're all in this together, and they can see the kind of the bankruptcy of the old model. It's done. It's served its purpose, and we're moving on now. It's so exciting.
Wow. Yeah, because I know for myself personally, like even this happened, in the Mankind Project, coming into a community, and I imagine that this is typical, that there's always this question of, if I become a part of this community, I'm going to lose me.
Mm-hmm.
What about me? What about me?
Yeah.
Well, this is the balance that we're working with here, is to balance the interconnectedness and the individual autonomy, and it has to be there because too many people have been involved in organizations led by dynamic spiritual teachers where they felt they got swallowed up and they got lost.
Right.
They gave up too much, and we don't want to be like that. That's not what we're looking at.
And I'm really hearing that you have all the components in there, because it's like building this container for community and then having people express their unique gift to the community, which is really like their individual expression, where they can be who they are in the context of the container of the community. Is that what? Yeah. And I have that. I have that experience in the Mankind Project. Like, I can be who I don't have to. I used to think. I've been in it for 6 years, but I used to think they're making me do something I don't want to do. And now I'm starting to get like, hey, I can be who I want to be in this context.
You can be a choice.
Yeah, and I can still be here, and I can still disagree with people, and we're still here together. And
that's very much
phenomenal.
Yeah, and that's maturity. That's maturity to know that when you can be at choice and you can disagree and not walk away, but just know that you agree to disagree.
Yes,
you're different. There's just the other day we met with our core group, and we've been traveling this summer. A lot of people. There were some deaths in the families, and I also want to just say that when we join up with our core group, we also do take on their kids and their parents. We go to nursing homes and we hang out with the kids. I mean, go to football games. It's that kind of thing too.
Wow.
But getting back together and just taking hold of each other, taking hold of each other's hands, and just sitting in silence there's just such an incredible feeling of the strength of our whole, and how once you have that feeling, and there's nothing else like it until you get back together and you're physically all present together, and you're there, you're creating a body, a larger body that just it's extraordinary feeling. And even though, this whole group has been working with this and have done a lot of inner work, there's still in our check-in over half of the people expressed that given the challenge of the times that we're in right now and the change in their economic fluidity, that there's a sense they wrestle in the wee hours of the night with intense loneliness. Even these people that are so connected, when they're really being honest, they speak to that place of like, wow, I get frayed and then I feel alone, and it's like I don't feel that right now, So they're being, I think, very deep in speaking about that, very vulnerable.
Which allows them to feel the support if they can out their loneliness, so to speak. Yeah. So that's that transparency again I was talking about. When it's a safe enough place to actually speak that level of truth, then you can start to feel the safety of the love and blessings around you.
So it's the whole container building.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I want to ask you guys, how does all of this tie into like what's happening now, like with the movement that's happening, Occupy Wall Street? It seems, as I'm reading through your book and I'm seeing this stuff about Occupy Wall Street, somehow this seems very interconnected. It seems very relevant to what you're talking about. And I was wondering if you could speak to that in a way that ties it together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's this whole shift. People are realizing the economic system as it's been and the way it's progressing, where there seems to be such extreme injustice in terms of our social services and the wealth of the middle class, the wealth of the poor. I mean, it's the poverty of the poor, the poverty of the middle class. There's an injustice there because of consumption. The kind of a sense of corporate deservedness.
I think I got a metaphor that I just love, which is that the game of Monopoly, if we play the game of Monopoly by the rules, the results will always be the same. If we play the game of Monopoly by the rules, the results will always be the same, which is that one person ends up with all the money and the others are all poor. It's the way it always ends up if you play by the rules. Even if you have 4 Mother Teresas playing, it will always end up exactly that way. So we are in a game here. We're in a money financial game of Monopoly, and it's designed to do exactly what it's doing, which is that the 1% is going to end up with all the money just as it is, because we're playing by these rules. So the kids, the young people get this for whatever reason. I think it's because of the Internet and their ability to educate themselves beyond the kind of the schools and the universities. So they get it. They get that we're playing a game that's a lose-lose game. So they are, as best as they can, saying, we're not playing this game anymore. And they're actually standing up in a way that's using all the skills, all the psychosocial, spiritual skills that we've been developing for many, many years. So they're in conversation. They're not wed to any particular goals. They're actually allowing the results to come as they're standing up saying, we're not playing this game anymore. That's my take on it. I think it's just such a breath of fresh air and so brilliant and wonderful.
And wow. I don't think it's just the Wall Street, the 99%. It's people everywhere. I mean, I think this is the foundation of the Tea Party. Basically, they're good people who want they want something that feels more just.
I want to read a quote that's at the beginning of your guys' book that's like really like sticking out for me right now, and it's from Buckminster Fuller. This is the opening quote in your book. It says, "You never change something by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete."
Mm-hmm.
Bingo.
Yep. That's certainly what we're devoted to doing, is building that new model, and stepping out to where there's no rules and guidelines particularly, And maybe our book provides some guidelines for some others to step out and to create it in their own form.
Mm. And so let me ask you guys this. What's your greatest hope for our future?
Oh, the greatest hope?
Yes.
Well, my husband is one heck of a visionary. Mm. So when he starts a group like the Mankind Project, I don't think he thought it was ever going to grow maybe as big as it has, but I think he hoped that it would even grow larger than it has and do even greater good for bonding men with men and making happier men.
So I said my new mission is that I create a world in which everyone is free to give their gift. And that's where the Occupy Wall Street is that they're saying we need to be free to, in so many words, we need to be free to give our gift. And the old system is not working towards that end. As that consciousness continues to spread, there's simply no stopping it. The old system can try to survive, with stopgap and what they call them, just delay measures, and they can delay for a while. But there's nothing that's going to stop this, and the consciousness of humankind is moving forward in a really exquisite way. So that's my hope, and I also think of it as quite inevitable, and we get to play a little teeny part in moving it in that direction.
So I think Bill's vision, and I share this vision, is to see this sense of being the gift and gifting each other and moving to all of those goals like trust and community and abundancy, all of those things. There'll be a wide movement across the world, and that our planet will be a happier place and a more beautiful world as it truly is. It's a gift. We're living here in this incredible gift, so that there'll be thousands and thousands of these groups of gift circles, or at least places where people are holding these ideas.
Wow. Well, you guys, I know we're just a little bit over an hour here, so I want to bring the call to a close here, and I just want to thank you and acknowledge each one of you so much. And Bill, I want to acknowledge you, and I know I said this to you before, and I'm going to say it again, that thank you so much. I'm speaking on behalf of all men from the Mankind Project. Thank you so much for creating the Mankind Project, and if I thank you every day, all day long, if that's all I did the rest of my life, all day long, every single day, it wouldn't be enough. Thank you.
Blessings, Mike, and thank you so much for creating this opportunity for us to share a new vision. I feel I've been learning as we've been talking here, so thanks for giving your gift.
You're welcome. And Zoe, I want to bless you and thank you for coming together with Bill in creating this incredible template and doing this work for years and years. I have so much hope in my heart hearing, how you guys are really bringing this world, that you're bringing this into reality, like in a real way. Like this is not just, nice talk. I mean, it is nice talk, it is. But you're really bringing it into I'm a big proponent like bringing things into physical reality, and I feel like you guys are doing that in a way that it's real, it's substantial. So thank you. I bless you so much for doing that as well, Zoe. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike, and thank you for your good questions.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And also, just to bring the call to a close, I just want to let everybody know about myself again, is that my name is Mike Brown, and I'm a spiritual life coach, and what I do is I help people turn their heartfelt dream into reality, and you can find out more about me at MikeBrownCoaching.com. And I want to ask you guys where you want to send people to, or is there a website you guys want to share, or is there a way that people can get in contact with you?
Yes, there certainly is. You can go to our website, which is weneedeachother.net or giftcommunity.net.
And you can find our book there on Amazon, or for folks that don't think they can handle the $20, we can't hold it back. It's far too precious to hold back. So we'll give you a copy for whatever gift you're willing to, gift us, and we'll do that by PDF. So it's all right there on the website.
And our book is We Need Each Other, Building Gift Community. Bill Kauth, Kauth, and Zoe Alowan. So that's the best way to find us. And we invite people to go to our website and check it out.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you again so much for the gifts that the both of you are, and I look forward to connecting with you more and talking to you more.
Sounds great, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Hello?
Hello.
Hey.